Coming up on today's episode, there were two NFL trade proposals I saw floated out there that involved your Atlanta Falcons, so I thought we'd go through both proposals on today's show and check them out. So, with that being said, let's dive into the first trade that Bleacher Report tossed out there, which is Kirk Cousins to the New York Giants, and the Falcons receive a fourth-round draft pick and cornerback Cor'Dale Flott. Pause right here. This is a trade we do in a heartbeat. You know why? Because it's a mythological trade. It's as real as a Pegasus. It's never going to happen. And I really mean that with as much confidence as I did last offseason when I said blank as a Falcon, which would give some of you a good laugh. But no way any team is, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, is calling the Falcons and going, you got that quarterback, the one that's coming off an Achilles, the one that's kind of pushing 40, who played really bad the last 5 games. What do you think about a fourth-round draft pick, a nice early day 3 pick, and we'll toss in one of our starters on defense? What are they smoking at Bleacher Report? Because the FDA needs to ban that after red dye number 3. There is very little chance any team trades for Kirk Cousins. Maybe if a team starts to panic that if Kirk hits the open market, he won't pick them. But if he won't pick them in the open market, he is not going to waive his no-trade clause for them. Don't forget that part. You can't just trade Kirk wherever you want. He's got a no-trade clause. He has to approve of any trade. So with that in mind, if I were Kirk Cousins and they're like, hey, we're getting trade offers for you, okay, if you tell me my offer or my choices are take the trade or be the backup, then he may take the trade, or he may call their bluff and say, I don't think you're going to keep me as the backup. I think you're trying to keep up this facade that you guys want me as the backup to drive up my interest and drive up my value. And ultimately, you're going to release me because you and I know you're not going to give me $10 more million a few years after the start of the new league year in the middle of March. At which point, I can then pick where I sign, and I will sign for the vet minimum because if I'm Kirk Cousins, I'm probably a little salty at the Falcons. I've got this nice big press conference where I talk about how this is the place where I want to finish my career, and I can't wait to play my last games here. And you know what they did 6 weeks later? They drafted my replacement. So he may not have a ton of love right now for the front office in Atlanta. He may not want to do them right or do them a solid, which would mean giving them a draft pick. So he'll say, cut me. That way, you don't get anything for me. And whatever team I sign with, I'll sign for the vet minimum contract, around $2 million. And you'll be stuck paying the rest of my $25 million, which is guaranteed this season. How does that sound? That right there, I think, is what's going to happen with Kirk Cousins over the next couple of weeks and months. Because I'm struggling to think of teams that want this Kirk Cousins. I don't have a good explanation as to how this happened, but the fact is it happened. He fell off the face of the earth. You look at the last 5 games that he started, 1 touchdown, 9 interceptions, and the team went 1-4. That right there is a lasting image that I struggle seeing any team give up a fourth and a player for. Maybe it would be, like I said, I think on yesterday's episode, a day 3 pick swap because some team out there is like, you know what? We think that Vikings Kirk Cousins is still somewhere deep inside of him, and we're willing to wager a 6th-round draft pick on it. And that's not a bad wager to make. But I doubt they are going to find, I doubt the Falcons are going to find someone willing to wager a 4th and a player on a guy who was unplayable his last couple of games. So, no, I don't think Kirk Cousins is going to get dealt to the New York Giants for that. He could get traded for a very late future day 3 pick. I mean, right now I'm feeling like it's the scene out of Semi-Pro where they're like, you know what? We had to make that trade. We really need a new washing machine. If someone wants to call the Falcons, like Moneyball style, and go, we'll pay your vending machine bills and we'll stock it for free for 2 years, that's probably the best offer you're going to get for Kirk. You better hope he signs off on that, though, because he's got the no-trade clause. Now, having said all that, it would be nice to get more draft capital. I mean, right now the Falcons have 5 draft picks. It's probably one of the worst overall draft capital, assets across all 32 teams. I mean, 5 picks is some of the fewest you see in a draft. I think in recent memory, when the Dolphins took Skylar Thompson in March of 2022, the 2022 NFL draft, or 2023, Either way, they had 4 picks that draft. And that, as I scratch my head, is the fewest amount of picks I can remember a team having in recent memory. So Atlanta's not far off from that right now with 5. So I'm sure they'd love to add to this. Even if it's just a 7th round pick, maybe they can bundle these 2 7s together and move up into round 6. But they do not have a ton to work with at the moment. Before we look at the second trade idea that was floated out there involving someone coming to Atlanta, if you would like to get a shout out on a future episode, what I need you to do is scroll on down and click the subscribe button, because at the end of today's episode, you're going to see we're giving shout outs, so make sure you hop aboard by clicking the sub button down below. Now, a quick shout out to our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. All of that information is in the comments and description of today's video. Download the app today and use that code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks is an awesome place to get some of the action going while watching maybe the big games coming up this weekend, or we've got Ohio State and Notre Dame on the horizon. So have some extra fun with PrizePicks. Run your game. The second trade idea that Bleacher Report proposed was Bryce Huff, the edge rusher, to Atlanta for the 4th and 7th round draft pick that Atlanta has in this upcoming draft. I saw this when I thought, okay, this is a little bit more in the realm of possibilities compared to the Kirk Cousins for 2 assets coming to Atlanta. So let's kind of discuss this one in a bit more detail. I'm going to say no. And this is probably the first and last time you'll ever see me say no to acquiring any pass rusher who has 10 sacks in a season. But right now, like we just looked at 2 seconds ago, with Atlanta having 5 picks in the draft, I cannot sign off on parting with 40% of your draft capital for a player who is coming off a really, really bad season and still having. I mean, the Eagles are still in the playoffs right now, but it's not looking very good for Bryce Huff ever since he signed with Philly. It was a very bizarre exchange. If you don't know, our old friend Hassan Reddick, he went from the Eagles and was traded to the Jets, and the Jets didn't know what they were getting themselves into because dysfunctional organizations do dysfunctional things. Meanwhile, the Eagles signed Bryce Huff from the Jets. They gave him $33 million guaranteed. That was the most in NFL history to a UDFA, so incredible story for Bryce Huff. But ever since he signed that 3-year, $51.1 million contract, he has had very little role on this Eagles defense. He was hardly seeing the field early on. He acknowledged that he needs some more time to fit into the Vic Fangio scheme. In 9 games this year, he has played 50% of snaps or fewer. He missed about a month with a wrist injury. In the final game of the season, this is what the Eagles kind of think of Bryce Huff. When they sat all their starters, they rested them because they could not go up or down in playoff seeding. Bryce Huff played 87% of snaps. So they tossed him out there with all the backups, and we're hoping that maybe if he plays this whole game, we can kind of get some rhythm going and the wheels in motion. 2.5 sacks this season. That is the fewest in a year for him since his 2021 campaign. He comes off of 2023, a 10-sack season where he really broke out, and he didn't even have that big of a role on the Jets defense, which is why the Eagles were so jazzed up about him, because they just thought, man, imagine what he'll do when he starts every single game for us, unlike his 2023 season. But that has not been the case, so no. I go back to this trade, and you can't take away a 4th and a 7th. That means the Atlanta Falcons have a 1st, a 2nd, no 3rd, no 4th, no 5th, no 6th, and 1 7th. You want to go all the way from picking in round 2 to picking in round 7 for a player who has 2.5 sacks this year. If you're going to take away 40% of the draft capital, I'm going to need a more compelling case. And Bryce Huff this year is not making a good case for this. Some news I want to get to before we sign off. So the Indianapolis Colts, if anyone speaks German, has been designated as a home team to play over in the fatherland. Next season, they are excited to host the NFL's first ever regular season game in Berlin. Why are we talking about the Colts going to Berlin? Because the Atlanta Falcons, they have 9 road games coming up this year, and one of those road opponents is the Indianapolis Colts. So there is a possibility that the Falcons could be going to Berlin and playing the Colts. And then to make, I wouldn't say matters worse, but to make things a little bit more interesting for you guys, the Atlanta Falcons, well, if you don't know, every single team in the league, they've got, or most teams, I think every single team, they have pretty much like colonized the rest of the world from a marketing standpoint, global market programs. And under Germany, the Falcons are one of the teams who, and I need someone smarter than me to explain this, are allowed to like market the team there, advertise the team there. I don't really understand this, but ultimately, this is, in my opinion, Roger Goodell's like true, and this probably won't happen under Goodell as commissioner, but his ultimate manifest destiny goal of making the NFL the most popular sport in the world, slaying soccer. And this is a step in that direction. So we're talking decades down the line, but that's kind of, I think, what the NFL's true ultimate goal is. And with the Atlanta Falcons being a team that has marketing rights in Germany, it kind of makes sense that they could be a team that goes over and plays the Colts in Berlin. Plus, I feel like those international matchups, they're always just too, like, they're not rival teams hardly ever, right? They're like, whoa, we never think of Falcons versus Colts. Like, that's not a frequent matchup or anything like that. So it just gives me vibes of, yeah, I think we're going to see the Falcons play in Berlin probably sometime in mid-October if I had to guess. So just mark your calendar right now for a nice 9 a.m. kickoff over in Germany in some time of October. Okay, before we sign off, I do want to spin the wheel to give a quick shout out to someone who commented on a previous video of ours. I just picked 6 names at random, so go ahead, comment on today's video. You could be picked for a future wheel selection or subscribe as well. So with that being said, let's spin that wheel, baby. Who's going to get 2 claps today? Our lucky winner, and the winner gets nothing other than a little bit of airtime, is Real Deal Entertainment. Real Deal Entertainment, thank you for tuning in. Let's go, dude. 2 claps for Real Deal. 1, 2. Appreciate you for tuning in, supporting the channel. I'll let you guys get on out of here, and I'll catch up with all of you tomorrow.